about to leave, already packing. Come with me, I'm not really asking. We'll get away to a place where we don't know. About to see the world in action, what we can be, life with no distractions. We'll get away, this is what we waited for. Take my hand, we'll make it somehow. We can't miss out. I'm done living life with the lights out, die with my own doubts. Be free with me. Let's be free with Not looking back, eyes on the freeway, Bonnie and Clyde, a classic cliche. We're on the run, this is what we waited for. Take my hand, we'll make it somehow. We can't miss out. I'm done living life with the lights out, die with my own doubts. Be free.
Good morning and welcome to today's show. Now, I don't know about you, but it's quite warm outside. It's around 14 degrees. You know, for most people, you know, they'd probably say that it wasn't very warm, but considering we've had minus temperatures in the last few weeks, it's almost like a sunny summer's day. And we do actually have sun today as well to top it all off. So in today's show, I wanted to go through ActiveCampaign Tags. What are they and how should you use them? If you don't know how to use them, then that's what we're going to be covering in today's show. Hi, for those that don't know me, my name is Jason Kruger and I help heart-centered businesses build and automate their online marketing systems. So in today's show, I'm going through ActiveCampaign Tags because to me, they are very powerful and they have many uses, but sometimes it can become unwieldy and become a right mess if you don't use them properly. You know, I've gone into clients' accounts and they might have, 300 tags set up in their accounts. And if you go to any one of their contacts, they could have upwards of 20, 30 tags. Now, I'm not saying that is wrong, but sometimes it then becomes more difficult to actually see what those tags are meant to show. Because if you've got so many on there, you end up having to go through it quite carefully to make sure that you can see what they are. Now, tags have loads of different uses within ActiveCampaign. But there are a few that are the most important. There's the actual organizing of your database. So this is namely the segmentation side of things, making sure that it is organized so that you can see what's going on. You'll see how people have interacted with you. Now, before I go on to the other 2 points, if you do have any questions regarding today's topic, please leave them down in the comments and I will make sure that I answer them for you. And if you do like this content, then please just leave a like as well. That would be greatly appreciated. Now, as I said, tags are one of the main uses of tags is to organize your contacts. Now, before I go on to those other 2 points, I want to compare lists and tags a little bit here because, yes, tags are used to help to organize your ActiveCampaign account. But the first point when it comes to this is actually to use lists, because lists are going to be your top end part of your organizing of your account, because that's where you're going to put in the main differentiators within your database. So I've used this as an example in the video I did about lists. But if you have apples and oranges, you're greengrocers and you're selling apples and oranges, you're not going to have all the people that you sell to in one list, because you're going to have people that are going to like apples, you're going to have people that like oranges. And sometimes, they don't want to mix, they don't like oranges if they like apples and vice versa. So you'd have those 2 people in 2 separate lists. You would then use your tags to segment it even further. So for examples, in your apples list, you might have red, green, sour, sweet, etc. In oranges, you might have your large oranges, your medium oranges, your little oranges, etc. And that's where tags come in, because you're going to use those tags to do that segmentation. And that's how you're going to help organize your ActiveCampaign account. Now, the second main use that tags are used for is triggering. Now, you'll be thinking, well, what do you mean by triggering? Well, when you set up automations, for example, you can use tags to trigger that automation so that To start it, people have to have that one tag applied, and then once that's applied to them, they're then going to enter that automation. And it's one of the main features that a lot of my clients use them for. It is to trigger different campaigns depending on how you set them up. But also, it could be you use them further down in a campaign to trigger other campaigns to fire. But it's not just the application of a tag. You can also set it when a tag gets removed. So if you are removing a certain tag from someone, you could then fire off another automation because of that tag being removed. So it does have very powerful uses, and sometimes you do need to make sure that you know what those tags are going to do. You don't want to mix tag uses, for example. You don't want to use it for segmentation as well as triggering, unless you've kind of put that in the name of the tag. Otherwise, unbeknown to you, you could be applying a tag and all of a sudden some other automation starts off automatically. And, you might not want that. So you do need to be careful when you apply those tags and use them for triggering. And kind of the third main one is conditional content. Now, this can also be used in conjunction with the segmentation, because conditional content, you could put on there what people are interested in, for example. Are they interested in certain topics that you talk about? Are they interested in certain products that you sell, or services for that matter? But it's not just that type of conditional content. Within the email builders and that, you can set conditional content as well within there. So, for example, if they have a certain tag, so let's say they like red apples, you could set up your email to have different content within it, depending on the tags that they have applied. So you might have a section on red apples, but you don't want that section to show if they like green apples. So you can use tags to do that. The same thing when you're sending out broadcasts. You can set a segmentation depending on what tags people have. So that's a great use of tags, and is something that you might want to look into. Now, with all these uses of tags, as I said before, you need to make sure you know exactly what that tag does. And kind of the best way to make sure that happens is by using a proper naming convention. Now, before I go through that, if you do have any questions regarding anything that I've covered today, please leave it down below. And if you like the content, please give the video a like as well. It would be greatly appreciated. So going back to the naming conventions, without having a proper naming convention, you could just have a whole list of tags that you've just created on the fly, and 6 months down the line, you look at it and you don't quite know why you've created this tag. You know that you've got people tagged with it, but what does it actually mean? Now, you can put in a description when you are creating the tags, especially when you're doing it in the tag creation part of ActiveCampaign. If you're just creating it on the fly within automations, that's not going to happen. So you need to have a proper naming convention. Now, what do I mean by a naming convention? Well, there is one issue that I think ActiveCampaign should maybe address, but I don't see it happening anytime soon. So you do need to put it in the names, and that's having tag categories. In other systems like Infusionsoft or Keep now, you can have categories of tags and have tags under those categories. It just helps to maintain them so you can see exactly what they're being used for. Unfortunately, ActiveCampaign doesn't have this. So you do need to make sure that when you're creating these tags, that you have this proper naming convention, because then you can use categories as well, but just in the names. And this is what I urge my clients to do when they are creating tags, is to have this naming convention. So what do I mean by that? You could have tags for triggering, for instance. So how would that look? Well, the first part of the name, and I use square brackets because then I know that that's a category, and I put trigger in square brackets, have a space, and then I could have whatever that is triggering. So it could be for a specific promotion. It could be that it's going to trigger another campaign that I have. But I'll always use that trigger part in front of all my trigger tags, so that I know that when I apply this tag to someone, it is actually going to trigger an action. Be it firing off an automation or something else. So that's one way of doing it. You can also have behavior, for instance, and have behavior in the square brackets as a category. So what do I mean by behavior? Well, it could be that they've clicked on a link, they've opened an email, things like that. You could have interests, for instance. If you've got different services, you could have tags related to those services, so that you know that if someone has gone through and downloaded certain ebooks, you know that they're going to be interested in a specific service or product that you provide. So you might want to have interests within those square brackets, and then you know that all of those are going to be interests when you look at someone's contact record. The one thing you do need to make sure is when you do start creating your naming convention, that you are consistent with it, so that you know that it's always going to be organized and it's not going to be absolute chaos when you look at all your tags. You'll know why they're being used and why they've been named in a certain way. So make sure that you do have a consistent way of naming your tags. And maybe it's a case of, if you're just starting out with ActiveCampaign, is to kind of sit down and plan out how you're going to be using your tags. Sometimes just taking those extra few minutes and actually planning it out will save you a lot of work in the long run. As I said at the beginning, I've been into some clients' ActiveCampaign accounts, and they could have 300 tags in total, but there's no categories. So we don't exactly know how those tags are being used, and what would happen if I tagged someone with it. Will it trigger another automation, or is it just to tell me what they're interested in? So it is good to try and start using these naming conventions straight from the beginning when you start using ActiveCampaign. Otherwise, it's just going to become a complete mess further down the line, and then it becomes a lot harder to kind of tidy it all up. Also, just make sure that you keep it simple. You don't need to have it a mile long to explain exactly what it is. It could just be category and then what it's for. And even then, try and abbreviate it. Try and come up with a naming convention that you're going to use to do this. Now, overall, just make sure that you're not just creating tags because it's easy. Look at the data that you are wanting to store. When people are entering your database. When you are creating lead magnets, the only information that you really want to be capturing is their name and email. The more fields that you ask, the less likely people are going to sign up, because nowadays people don't really want to part with too much information. So you want to have the least amount of information that you require for everything to work. But when someone comes in via a form, etc., you want to have a tag applied to them so that you know that they've downloaded this ebook, that they've requested it, that they're interested in it. So at that point, you might want to have a tag. don't just start adding tags because it was easy to create tags. Because when you start looking at someone's contact record, if you have to look through 50 odd tags to find out what they're interested in or what they've been doing, it becomes harder, and then the effectiveness of tags is lost. Tags are there for you to have a look, see exactly what how they've interacted with your business, and it kind of gives you a snapshot of the client as well. Because it's something that can just be applied and removed, it will give you a snapshot of that contact then and there. So don't abuse it. Try and use the least amount of tags as possible. If there's going to be data that you're going to store for a long time, then maybe custom fields is going to be the way to store that information. Maybe it's not going to be information that needs to be stored as tags. As I said right at the beginning, there are the three main ways that tags are used. Organizing your database, triggering, and your conditional content. Now, when you are looking to apply tags to people, just think, is this tag going to be useful in any of those three categories? Triggering might be, to trigger certain automations, but then within that automation, you might then just remove that trigger tag, because yes, it could be useful to know that they've gone through a certain campaign, but a trigger tag is just really to start off that campaign. So within your automation, you might want to then remove that, but then you could apply a different tag to tell you that they have been through that automation, and this is what they've done. So, just think about how you kind of applying and removing tags as well. And as I said, try and use the least amount of tags as possible, so that it doesn't become a mess when you're trying to find the right tag when people are going through your different funnels, etc. And as I said, having too many tags, it just loses its effectiveness. If you've got different lists set up, and please have a look at that video that I did on lists, because there are certain caveats when you use lists and tags and unsubscribes and all that. But you can use lists to do your main segmentation, and then use your tags to do the fine segmentation. And just have a look at your whole structure, your lists, your tags, and then the custom fields that you're going to be using. As I said, if there's going to be information there that you are going to kind of store for long term, and it's not going to be something that's going to change within the next few weeks, few months, then custom fields is probably the way to go. Tags are there to kind of be a snapshot of that contact record, but also because they can be swapped out very quickly. So I hope these tips and the information that I've gone through today with regards to using ActiveCampaign tags will be useful to you, especially if you're just starting out using ActiveCampaign and you haven't really gone down the route of creating too many tags. Have a look at doing those naming conventions. But if you've been using ActiveCampaign and it is a bit of a unwieldy mess at the moment, then maybe some of the tips that I've gone through today, by using naming conventions, you can kind of go through that and have a look to see how you can tidy that all up. If you do need any help regarding any of this, then I do have a workshop that I created called ActiveCampaign Without Trauma. And in there, I go through the best practices for lists, tags, custom fields. I also go through, why we use autoresponders and what they're used for. But then the other things that I go through is I have the tech walkthroughs of the different features within ActiveCampaign, from going through the contact record, going through sending your emails, creating automations, forms, and even using their page builder. So if that is of something that might interest you, then please go to jasonkruger.com/ACWT to find out more. And I also have a free group there as well, so that when you do purchase the workshop, you can ask questions in there as well if you get stuck. So there is ongoing support there as well. So if this is something that does interest you, then please go and have a look. So I hope the information I've gone through today has been useful. If it is something that I haven't covered, then please leave a comment down below and I will make sure that I answer it for you. And if this information was useful, please give the video a like. It would be greatly appreciated. So I hope this was useful, and I will see you on the next one.